What creepy things have happened to you? Tell your story.
When I was a child, I often stayed overnight at my grandmother's house. She had an apartment in a very old house with old wooden window frames. There was a balcony in the hall. That time, there was no one else in the apartment besides us. Grandpa had died just the year it happened. She and I went to bed on the same couch. Grandma fell asleep quickly and snored. I couldn't sleep. I was on my phone. When I started to fall asleep, I put the phone away. The sofa was opposite the balcony, that is, with my feet towards the balcony door. I always sleep with my head wrapped in a blanket. I heard a knock. I thought it was starting to rain. Then I realized that the banging is too rare for rain. I don't know why, but I got goosebumps. After about 10 minutes of these knocks, I decided to take the blanket off my head and see what was going on. I could clearly see a woman sitting on the balcony canopy. She was tapping her finger on the glass. Her long black hair was disheveled, her eyes flickering red. The hand tapping on the glass is unnaturally long. Perhaps because of the cold light from the lantern, the skin seemed very pale, almost dead with shades of purple. Knocking and looking at me. I was thrown into a sweat, couldn't quite move, felt a real animal fear. After half an hour, I could pull myself together. I got out of bed and walked to the other end of the room. All this time, her gaze was destroying me. Not for a second did it disappear. I reached my grandmother's cane. The end of the cane was sharp. I turned the cane over to feel safer and to protect my granny. I stood there for about 10 minutes and caught her eyes on me, and I was able to think of a plan. Turned on the lights everywhere. My grandmother starts to slowly wake up. I yell at her not to get out of bed. I ran everywhere to close the windows in all the rooms. When I ran out of the hall, I saw the silhouette of a woman looking at me. I closed 3 windows in 10 seconds and ran to my grandmother. I explained to her everything that had happened. My grandmother believed me because she saw my condition and the fact that I was shaking. Grandma gave me and herself a sedative. We sat in silence in the kitchen, and then we came to the conclusion that it was sleep paralysis. I fell asleep at 5 in the morning. At 10 a.m. my mom picked me up. My mom led me by hand out of the apartment. I couldn't walk alone, especially outside. 12 years later, I was cleaning my grandmother's windows. I reached the balcony, and there, on the very spot where the woman was sitting, there was a chip on the glass. Small, barely noticeable, but a fucking chip. It's been quite a few years, but I'm still afraid of balconies. My new apartment, unfortunately, has a balcony in the bedroom. Every time it rains at night, I can't sleep for fear of it. I was sitting at my desk at home. It was already dark outside, and when the light is on indoors at such a time, the windows become like mirrors, and everything is perfectly visible. Anyway, I was sitting, writing something, and the window was close to the right side of me, and I saw the reflection of my room with my side vision. Then, after some time, I noticed that in the middle of the room stood a tall black figure, head almost under the ceiling. Interestingly enough, I turned toward the window, not into the room, to make sure I wasn't imagining it. Well, yes, there it was. It took me about 2 seconds to be sure. Turned sharply from the window to the figure and saw it moved sharply and just walked through the bed and disappeared into the wall. I didn't realize what it was, and I've never seen anything like it before. I had a prophetic dream about my dad dying. I'm in my 30s, and I've been a skeptic my whole life. Until this one. It was 2 years ago. I haven't had dreams in a long time, or remembered them. But in January, I had a strange dream. In the dream, I had to set the table for some kind of celebration. I was frantically wondering, wedding? A birthday? And then I saw that there was a long table with food and dishes ready for the guests. I breathed a sigh of relief. I see a crowd of guests. I don't recognize anyone. And they're all mature people. And then I realize that the food on the table is rotten, as it has been here for 3-4 days. In a panic, I run up to my brother's wife and tell her not to give it to the kids. She tells me, "Don't worry, they are not here." Suddenly, an angry mom comes up to me and starts yelling, "Where is your husband? Why isn't he here?" I start making excuses and say that he is out with our son, that he will come later. I woke up abruptly. I've never seen my mom in such a state. She's my kindest person. The feeling of uneasiness didn't go away after the dream. I attributed it to the lockdown because everything was fine in the family. A month later, my dad died suddenly. At his funeral, I recognized his coworkers and that very table of food. My husband stayed with our young son, so I could say goodbye to my dad in peace. And my brother and his wife left their little kids with relatives. I feel like I could have helped my dad if I had understood that dream. But it was the first funeral in my life, so I thought in my dream I was preparing for the celebration. So sick to my stomach that I didn't understand. An incident happened to my dad. He was visiting his father as an adult when I was born. They were talking about house spirits. Dad started to deny their existence and said, "If you exist, come to me tonight at 12 a.m. In the room where my dad slept, there was a cabinet with a mirror. The kind of old-fashioned furniture with a mirror up to the ceiling. It was balanced so that the mirror tilted back against the wall. Anyway, this big mirror fell on my dad's head. He says the first thing I did was look at the clock. It was exactly 12 at night. And this huge mirror didn't cause any injuries, just a little bit of lip smashing. Like my dad used to say, smashed my lips, don't fuck with me." Thanks for watching. Give it a like if you liked it. Write in the comments what creepy story happened to you. Hugs!